video using the Visual Studio project template, we discussed how to create a custom widget. This video will focus in on how to extend that. So if you have not done so already, you need to make sure that you watch this video, which means that you should have a local Videre portal installed with the test widget up and running on it. Additionally, you need to make sure that you have the Visual Studio project for that. The first thing that we're going to do to extend our widget project is create a new widget view. Now, Videre uses the MVC framework, and so some of these folders should seem relatively familiar to you if you have an understanding of the ASP.NET MVC framework. We're going to do that by putting inside of our views/shared widgets. All widgets should be under the widgets folder, then our namespace of the actual widget that we're created, and then here is where our views actually go for the widget. So we're going to say add new item. We're going to choose a widget view. We're going to call this to do summary, and we're going to click add. You should get the widget wizard just like you did when you created the widget. It needs to point to the proper location so it can do its defaulting. And here we go. We have a new widget view. You can see I have a bunch of commented sections that are helpful for a lot of widgets. Not all widgets require what's called the control presenter, and then we're going to start out not having one for this widget. And in fact, I'm going to clean up a bunch of this. We can get into the details of these things later. Okay, so just like our last widget that we had here, we're going to grab the tasks in the same way because we're really just going to summarize these. Let me get rid of a few more things. We're going to create a panel, a bootstrap panel. We're going to give it some localized text. As I mentioned before, this is an easy way to get your localization keys embedded. So to do we're going to create an unordered list group. And here we're going to say completed. And we're going to set up a span that we're going to do some simple data binding to. So we're going to have a column. Actually, we're not doing that yet. We're doing this all server side. So in here, we're going to fill in the completed amount. And in here, we're going to put in the total. So we're going to create a very simple object for data equals new anonymous type. We're going to say total equals tasks dot count, and completed equals tasks. Do a little link here that says find all the tasks that have a completed date and grab the count of those. Okay, so we're going to put in here the data dot completed. Looks like I got to do that as a method. And the data dot total. Okay, in order for this widget to be able to be rendered on our site, we actually need to ensure that it gets registered with Videre. So this is done in the registration.cs file. And we are just going to copy this line here from the existing widget. Put a comma there. And this is going to be called to do summary. This name needs to match the name of the view that we have. Title can be anything we want, but we're going to just do it summary. Now we're going to compile our project. And we're going to open up our website. we're going to go to admin page template. Remember, when we do our compiles, because we use the Visual Studio template that was provided for Videre, it automatically does the install of the widget for us. So now we're going to open up our test template. We're going to edit it. And you notice we have a general layout, which means we just have a header and a footer here. We're going to change this up and use the sidebar right template, which means now we have a main, sidebar right, and our footer. Since our widget installed, we should see it under sample. You see we have to do summary here, and we're just going to plop this over here on the right hand side. We're going to hit save, and we're going to pull up our test page. And you can see here we have our sample widget rendered with the totals over here. Rendering our data on the server side certainly was easy to accomplish, just putting the logic within the view. But if you remember how our widget was originally developed over here, is we're using Ajax to do that. So there's going to be an obvious flaw. If we add a new item and hit save, you can see that the totals weren't updated. It's going to take an entire page refresh in order for us to get our new totals. To get the desired interaction, we're going to need to change the logic that we render the data elements on the server side. And we're going to have to do that on the client side. We're going to start out by doing that by giving the to-do summary a client-side presenter. We're going to borrow the register control presenter from the to-do control. We're going to put it over here. We're no longer going to need this data change. This is going to be called to-do summary. And then the fields over here, we're actually going to do client-side binding instead of server-side. So we're going to make a span tag equals okay. And the other thing that you'll notice is that we actually are going to send down the data that we retrieve from the server side so it can render initially correctly. So now we're going to open up the actual client-side presenter. And in this case, we're going to borrow, again, what we have in to-do summary, and we're going to get rid of a lot of the logic within it. To-do summary. We're going to change the name of this to to-do summary. We're going to send down the data in the same way using the property. We don't need a dictionary anymore to look it up because we're not editing it. So we're going to get rid of the data dictionary, selected item. We have no dialog, and we have no savings. We're going to keep the delegate for data return because we're going to fetch the data to start out with. We're going to get rid of basically all of our control lookups, and in this case, we're going to say if we have data that was passed down to it, just go ahead and call a bind. Otherwise, call a refresh. This will allow our control to exist on its own as well. That's one of our goals. Maybe we want to put this control on the home page, and we want the edit control with the summary on it on another one. So we're going to leave the refresh method. Our bind is now going to be rather simple. We're going to delete the existing bind. We're going to create a new data object, just like we did the anonymous type before on the server side. Right up here, we're going to do something very similar on the JavaScript side. So we're going to say total equals this dot data dot length, and completed equals this dot data, and we're going to use the extended link to JavaScript framework that Videre provides by doing a where clause. Return d dot completed data is not equal to null dot length. And the last thing we're going to do is this dot bind data. We're going to bind data to this dot widget. This rest of the presenter logic we don't need, so we're going to delete that. We're going to compile it. We're going to refresh our page. You can see we have our totals updated. Now, this is all cool and all, but we still don't have the thing solved to where if we make a change over here, we get the updated over here. How could we? This is the only thing that we've updated is the fact that this guy can do a refresh. The best solution that we can come up with is to simply have the summary be notified when the to-do list gets updated. So we're going to show you how to do that. We're going to open up the to-do. And one of the things that you always see at the very bottom here is the idea of events. We're going to uncomment this. We're going to change the event called onUpdated. So now we have the ability to raise an event, an updated event, and in essence, we're also going to be passing in as an argument the data that we retrieved. So as soon as we have the data returned here, we're going to raise an event. And we're going to pass in the data that we've just retrieved. Okay, so we have our widget, our list, our to-do widget, raising the event. We now need to make sure that we can consume the event. So the to-do summary, on load, we're going to basically hook up our event handler. But for these two guys to see each other, we're going to use something within the framework. Videre.widgets.find first by type. So there's a little handler or method helper out there that will loop through all the client-side presenters that are registered, and we're going to find the very first one that matches this type. And the type we're looking for is my company planning widgets to do. We have our event off of this, which is handler here, add on updated. And we're going to assign that to a delegate. Oops. In our event handler, go ahead and have it here. Remember that we're passing a property as the second one, data. We're actually getting the data sent to us. So I can actually say here, this dot data equal args dot data. And then I can go this dot bind. Go ahead and compile this. Refresh our page. I'm going to go ahead and say new entry. And I'm going to hit save. And as you can see, our totals got updated. Go ahead and make one of these more completed. Oops, got to have a category. Voila. Our widgets can now talk to each other in an efficient manner.